All right, everybody, welcome back. This was a tough one this week. This is Read and React, watching AFC Hard Knocks. This is the first time on Hard Knocks where the Steelers are having a loss week. I'm Ryan Parrish here with my co-host Ryland Bickley. How's it going, Ryland?
That's not too bad. Kind of a not a lot of Steelers in this Hard Knocks
No, it's
compared
gonna be
to
a
two other
quick
weeks.
episode.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's what happens when you have the ball twice in the second half. But hey, so yeah, let's just dive into it. We'll start hitting off on the content in a little bit, but first, let's get your rapid recap. What happened in this episode for the Steelers that we care about?
Yeah, this will be a pretty quick one. The episode was pretty much split into four pretty even quarters, I'd say, focusing on each team. And each team, they kind of honed in on one player. So for the Bengals, that was Jamar Chase. For the Steelers, that was Russell Wilson. Ravens, Roquan Smith. And Browns, Denzel Ward. And so we got a look at each player's prep for the upcoming game. Actually, a lot of look on their recovery process, and then some looks into like their charities and foundations that they're a part of, which was pretty cool. And then just kind of the usual after that, a lot of game footage, and then a quick look ahead to next week, which has two AFC North matchups, obviously Steelers Ravens and then Bengals Browns, to look forward to.
Yeah, so this episode opened with the Steelers and it ended with the Steelers. I
Yes.
would say the vibes bookended. I see why they did it. And coming in, they were quite high. Coming out, I wouldn't say the vibes were low, but there just seemed like to be an air of confusion, which I think is appropriate because that's how a lot of us as fans felt watching that game.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, they cut to Russ in the second half during the game, and he's like, "I've never been in a game where you only get two possessions in the second half." So I think, yeah, the Eagles just kind of punched him in the mouth in that second half, and the Steelers were not. I think I don't know if they were unprepared for the Eagles. They were not expecting just to touch the ball twice. I mean, that was just absurd.
Well, and I know we're kind of going off the HBO script just to talk about the actual game here, but I don't know. To me, watching it, I just can't help but feel like we were watching like the idealized form of what the Steelers want to be being executed against them. Because you
Absolutely.
said they were punching them in the mouth, and like I think that can invoke a lot of imagery. And I feel like, watching that game, yes, there were like explosives, but it wasn't that they were just like toasting the defense. It was methodical. It was the run game. We're averaging less than 4 yards a carry every single ball carrier that had the ball all game, whether that was Hurts 15 times for like 45 yards. Barkley didn't have even 70 yards. He missed all game, but he still had 19 rushes. And they would just like would do that, but it was the little short 4 yard passes, those short little 6 yard passes on first and second down. And it was like they weren't murdering the team. It was, to me, it was death by paper cuts. And I feel like that's like, if you're wondering what the team vision is with what them bringing in Whitell from Philly and just how this team's operating, I think that this is what they want to be in the next two to, hopefully 2 seasons with what they're going to do in the off seasons. That's why we got to get a wide receiver too, so we can have somebody besides
Absolutely.
George Pickens. We saw what AJ Brown and Devonta Smith could do. But game ranting aside, what else did you like from this episode for the Steelers? We got a lot of Russ. Um, for me personally, being a Pacific Northwesterner, I have seen a lot of this already. I already knew that he trained in the pool and did all that cool stuff. It was cool seeing. But and Russ told some stories. But what was your main nugget from that? Did you take anything away from that you found interesting?
I wouldn't say I took a ton away. I mean, we kind of know what Russ is at this point in his career. I will say, as much as I love Russ, you kind of understand why in Denver, when the culture wasn't great and they weren't winning much, how Russ could get kind of annoying.
Oh, just kind of an asshole.
Just, well, no, but it's just like this, just positivity all around, right? But I think
Yeah, and that's not
oh,
Sean Payton.
it's not, but I also think that shows why, like in Pittsburgh and even in Seattle, where you have Pete Carroll and Mike Tomlin, two head coaches who, I mean, they're not like positive all the time, like they're good head coaches, but you can just tell his personality just meshes better with that, and I think that that was pretty clear in those interactions between Tomlin and Russ, and yeah, culture fit is just huge.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, they highlighted this with another player, but and then I checked it off watching almost every other one of the players they went through. Red lights, huge thing in the NFL athletic
Yeah.
recovery space. I don't know, like I'm curious about that. Um, Maybe it's well studied, maybe it's just one of those like things that they can charge athletes a lot of money for. I don't know. Something's working for some of these guys though. So it was funny that it was like every single one of them
Yeah.
had do you think do you think you do like what was that? He went into a cryo chamber, Jamar Chase did. Do you think you would do
Well,
that?
when he said it went to negative 200, I was like, there's no way. And then I looked it up online. They're like, yeah, they go to like negative 230 Fahrenheit. And I
The
was like,
thing
you've got to be kidding me. That
the
is
thing that
just
show didn't really make
absurdly
clear to
cold.
me. How long are they in there?
It looks from like my Google search late last night, it's like 2 to 4 minutes, I think, before you like die. But
Yeah, so how long are they in there? Because that's if you die. So like, are they in there like 30 seconds? Are they in there? Because yeah, no, you
sure.
were literally seeing like his hair freeze on end, like on his legs.
Yeah, you will be in the cryo chamber for 2.5 to 4 minutes.
Hmm.
The whole the whole process usually takes 20 minutes to half an hour, so there's got to be some like recovery afterwards, I'd assume.
Yeah,
But
right. Well,
that is
and
just wild.
isn't that the thing that was he doing? I know he was doing cryo something. Was Antonio Brown when he that summer he got traded to the Raiders and he like
Oh
frostbit his
no.
foot? Wasn't he
Yeah,
doing like cryo chamber stuff?
I think it was. Yeah.
Crazy,
Oh man.
wild. I mean, you look at what Chase is doing, and it's like, okay, you can't really argue with the results, but that seems wild to me. 200 degrees below Fahrenheit.
Yeah. I mean, you really want to hope that whoever runs that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So, but we got to the game. TJ Watt, huge focus early. It's so frustrating because the defense in the first half, they kind of started squeaking at the end, but that first quarter, even though they gave up points, they were really on it.
Oh yeah. I mean, and this that battle between Lane Johnson and TJ Watt was really great to see. And as some people have said, it's like it's not so much about who won and who lost, just two absolute legends going at it at the top of their game, and they both won some matchups. It was really fun to see.
Yeah, it was great. And then yeah, and I guess we saw a little bit too of meetings with the offense. I don't know, like I don't, what did you take away from those? I felt like they were doing a lot of gassing up Russ. I mean, they're never going
Yeah,
to show us the scheme part, so you always have to keep that in mind. But I don't know. I was like, yeah, we know
one
it
thing that
seems like they were
did
saying the right things, but we didn't really see it come out.
Yeah, one thing that did stand out to me is unless I heard it wrong, but they were talking about like game planning for the Eagles defense, and there was something about how they'll let you get some underneath stuff, but they're shutting down the deep shots. And then in the game, we saw the Steelers try to establish that quick passing game early, and the Eagles just shut it down. And so I mean, again, we're not going to get a lot of X's and O's stuff on this show, but it does seem like the Steelers went in expecting to at least get that quick passing game going, and that's kind of what shut down their offense early.
Yeah,
That was a kind of an interesting nugget, I think.
yeah, that's a good pull. Yeah, I don't know. I was watching mostly defense from what I've watched so far this week, so I still need to dive in on what the offense had going on. Reactions from just having watched it live, it felt like a mix of like, yes, they wanted to get the quick passing game, but whether it was the execution or like the space that Smith was drawing up was just like was not working. And
Yeah,
like the Eagles are one of those teams where it's like they're kind of like us, where it's like their corners are, except for this last game with Jackson, like, pretty sound tacklers and decent in coverage. And so they'll let slowly drive upfield if you want. And I don't know, Steelers just felt like it was it was like we were talking about last week. Defense just kind of shrunk in on them and they couldn't do anything about it. But
exactly.
and then that's really where it ends. And if we were doing quotes of the week, I do have one silly one from the middle of the show because there is a little bit there that we didn't touch out with the practice. And then I think the one at the end. So let's give them real quick. In the middle of the
Yeah.
show when they're doing the practice, Russ is talking with Move, and they do this little bit where he's like, "How old were you when I got in the league?" type thing.
Oh yeah.
So my quote would be, "Your ass was in eighth grade," from Russ, talking about where Pat Fryermuth was in 2012 when Russell Wilson was a rookie in the league.
I love
Uh,
how they've all seen that Calvin Austin in a Wilson jersey thing too.
Yeah, that was, and then that's yes, that leads them to go, hey, Moose says something like, hey, Calvin like is a big fan or something like that. And so yeah, I thought that was great. And then, they later in the game, he didn't have a huge game again when you have the ball twice in the second half, it's hard to get huge numbers. But he
Yeah.
looked like he was starting to have a good game. And, as somebody who's seen a lot of Russ in the Seahawks, I wouldn't say he's anywhere at this level, but you can picture visions of Tyler Lockett and Russ's connection. And it looks like it's not anywhere close to that right now, but it looks like it's starting to build and their familiar play styles. So that would be huge down the stretch if we can just get Calvin Austin a little more. If we can scheme him open, because he's looks like he's come a long way in the 3 years that he's been here.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Not
he's already established himself as just a good gadget player, and if he can become that plus just someone who you can reliably count on to get a couple catches a game,
Yeah,
that would
like
really
three,
be
four
huge.
catches a game. Each one of them, is like 10 plus yards. He might
Yeah.
not be, leading the league in targets or catches or touchdowns, but if he can just be solid chunk plays occasionally throughout would be nice. Um, but so that was interesting. But I think the one for me that I would have to do is at the end of the game, they're talking about, they do this little sort of montage of like, all right, well, the real game's coming next week. It's real AFC North football because we're going to get two games next week. So there's going to be win or lose a lot of Steelers Ravens, I imagine. Um, and he's talking about how, we're still in position to get the division. And I think his final quote was something like, but we've got to take it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think that would be the message, I guess, in the quote from this episode that I hope at least is resonating with the team. We'll see. It's always a Baltimore games, man. They're different.
Oh man. Yeah. I'll run through a few that I wrote down. And the quotes was I like Tomlin. I think it was near the beginning talking about playing that Red Hot Eagles team. He was like, I always want to be the group that puts the fire out. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Um,
Just wish it had come
Lieb,
to fruition.
oh yeah, for sure. Lieb
A lot of these hit
Schreiber.
a lot harder after a win.
Oh, for real, yeah. Lieb Schreiber had a solid line on that run where Jackson's pants almost fell down, and he's like, he's exposing the Giants' defense and almost something else. I did get a chuckle out of that one. It was dumb, but it was kind of
Yeah,
funny.
Hard Knocks is gonna take a few shots here and there. That was funny.
Yeah. Joe Burrow talking to Alex, is it Kappa at the last name? And he was like,
Yeah,
Cap, is O-line fun? Just that
O-line
whole
is
exchange
fun.
was kind of
I,
hilarious.
that I will say, I can't hate Joe Burrow. He was one of my favorite college players, and I like his story a lot. I want him to lose every time the Steelers play him, and I and it brings me joy to see the Bengals lose, even with him
Yes.
there. But I do like him as like just a fan of sports, and he does seem to have just kind of like a goofy personality. And I think the thing that I was laughing at most was he was talking about I forget what they were talking about, but they're basically saying like there's this thing you can do, but it's fine if you're a good quarterback
Oh yeah.
or something
I
like
mean,
that.
I do feel
Forget the
like with
exact phrasing, but he was basically talking about, oh yeah, it's so hard to do this and this and this and this unless you're good, something like that.
yeah. I mean, I feel, there was a focus on a lot of non-Steelers players in this, and I
Yeah.
mean, they all seemed like solid dudes. And
And I
I
think,
mean, yeah,
HBO probably was conscious that the first two episodes were pretty Steeler heavy, so they
yeah,
probably, in a loss, were like, we'll dial it back a bit.
absolutely. Shout out to that one kid at that Russ event who asked him not once but twice if he was going to resign. Real like future journalist hero right there.
Yeah, he was hound dogging for sure. And I
He
mean,
was.
not surprising. Russ gave a very political answer of, I like it here. I hope so. You know, nothing definitive, nothing, but it's CEO Russ,
Oh
but
yeah. But I mean, I don't think that that's anything we didn't know already. He
Yeah,
probably wants to resign. He probably also wants to get paid fairly. So we'll see how that looks at the end of the year.
I will say I'd heard a little bit about this connection previously, but just the thinking about it too, and that topic, him being an East Coaster naturally, I always think of him as a West Coaster because when I first was introduced to him, he was with the Seahawks.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
but didn't can't say I watched a lot of Wisconsin while he was there. Didn't when Jonathan
Yeah.
Taylor was there, but but yeah, so I don't know. I just think he would like to stay on the East Coast, maybe. It sounds like he's got roots over here. But the thing that I noticed and thought was kind of a cool moment was him talking to Tomlin before the game and just kind of their Virginia connection. It's just kind of cool seeing when, coaches and players
Absolutely.
have those human interactions just like the rest of us. Oh, you're from Virginia? Sick, bro.
One thing I did like with Russ was kind of that level-headedness he brings during the game. You saw during that big fight that broke out, he's pulling guys back, being like, "Be smart, be smart." And then I think it was like the first offensive huddle of the game. He's telling them where the play clock is, where the down and distance is
Mhm.
in the stadium. Something I assume he would do every game, and I thought that that was kind of a cool little thing to see from him.
Yeah, just little details that, they got to, as quarterback, take notice of that we who just kind of see the broadcast maybe don't think about. He had another good one too, when they were down early, don't blink, just answer, don't blink, just answer. I thought that was a cool kind of more thing of taking some Tomlinisms and turning it into his own thing. And so I don't know. I, it's just a that's the game, man. It was just one of those games. That's what it does to you. You're just like, it was a confusing game. I think what we can take away from it is I don't know, because I always viewed this year as like that sort of soft rebuild year. Like they're widely exceeding my expectations for this year. I didn't think they'd be bad, but I
Absolutely.
didn't think they would be in position to win the division this late. And they're kind of playing with house money. There's a lot of square, like there's a lot of round edges that need to be squared off still with some
Absolutely.
players in their development, but you can see it starting to mold. And if anybody that was frustrated after this game, I think what I would just preach to you is patience. This team is like truly has momentum in a way that I think can carry over to next year if they just make a couple correct decisions with how they manage some of the free agency and drafts and whatnot. But Philly is like where we want to be within a year or two. Like
Yep.
they're so built in exactly like I think what the idealized version of what Steelers want their team and to look like and how they want to attack. And so I would just say, look what they did, and let's just hope the players saw that, internalize it. Because like the other thing, like I know we've been following that Joey Porter Jr. all year. When I watched the tape on that game, I don't think he had a bad game. There was a lot of there was like, you know, a lot of like one of them was this insane catch that
Yeah.
he was right in his hip pocket. He was not getting burned at any point. There was one play where literally AJ Brown got in his lap, threw him to the side, and ran for a slant route. And then the rest of the coverage was man, so he had room to run. That's the
Yeah.
only play where I felt like he was burned. And so I just feel like hopefully a player like that, like we saw in a previous episode of Hard Knocks, will take that more as motivation than something to sulk about. And hopefully they just take that out this week in the game against the Ravens.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Pittsburgh's in their best spot to win a playoff game that they've been in years, I'd say. As long as they don't get the Chiefs or the Bills in early, which I don't think
Hot
they can
take,
easily win all in any game.
and obviously this might change after 2 weeks from now. I think they match up really, really well with Kansas City.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
just
they match
saying
up
I'd rather
super well with
play
Kansas City. Kansas
Denver
City
than Patrick
cannot create a chunk
Mahomes.
play. Kansas City cannot create a chunk play. And so if they can just clamp on the underneath stuff and keep
Yeah,
playing a good running game, because Kansas City's run game is not pretty. It's just kind of like enough. So I think they match up well. Bills scare me a little bit, if we're being honest. I mean,
yeah,
they're on fire right now.
yep.
Uh, but the Chiefs, obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes, who maybe it should be Patrick Mahomes. We'll see what's up with his
He's
ankle,
practicing in full already, which
which,
is
of course, he
crazy.
is. Like, yeah, yeah. Like, I'm sure he's a freak, and like you've seen, he does the weird like bends for his like ankle, like his pliability training is he just gets bent weird all off season, so he can get bent weird in season. It's weird, but
Whatever
with
works,
that,
right?
with that, we're it's another tangent. But with that, I think we're gonna sign out here. Quick programming note: was next week is the holiday. We will not be recording for next week's episode since it's dropping on Christmas Eve. You guys are probably going to be with family. We're going to be with family, so we're just gonna put that on hold. We'll see how the next 2 weeks play out. We're going to give you a little bit of that episode in the next episode, but depending on how much content there is to discuss, will kind of dictate uh, how much of both episodes we get to talk about. But that'll be in 2 weeks. Have a good holiday, everybody. See you in a little bit. Here we go, Steelers.